Hello, I'm Rick Joyner, and this is a current events special bulletin. And, in the last one I shared about how, a couple of basic issues we need to understand. One thing is we have close to, probably now 40, maybe approaching 45 or 50% of Americans now work for the government, or are living on entitlements. And then these are being supported by the only ones who are producing something. Government doesn't produce anything. It regulates and it does a lot of things, but it doesn't produce anything that can be marketable. So you got 50% of the people carrying the entire tax load for this government that is getting bigger than they are and more populous than they are at a very fast rate. The stimulus bill that was passed in the first months of the Obama administration ballooned this ratio way out of proportion. Now, no country in history has ever been able to survive this kind of ratio. Under communism, they could not sustain it. That's why it ultimately collapsed and imploded on itself. So, the greatest minds in the economy and in business, the most successful at forecasting and accurately predicting where things are going, just about are unanimous in the fact that our dollar is dead. The dollar is going to be worthless soon. We need to prepare for that as Christians. How do we prepare for our money not being worth anything? Well, as I shared in the prophetic book I wrote over 20 years ago, The Harvest, and many of the things that I wrote about in there have already come to pass, and it looks like all the rest of them are coming to pass much faster and are really upon us right now. But I talked about a time when the currency that we would function under would be bartering. It would be trading skills or something you had of value that you could trade for something you needed that somebody else had. I do believe we're headed that way for a period of time. Now, when we talk about the collapse of the dollar, many believe this is something that's being done to us systematically on purpose, that there's a very clear strategy. I confess there is a huge amount of evidence that seems to indicate they have planned this out and are just following a plan to totally destroy the dollar, to gut the economic strength of America, and to destroy our economic future. It looks like it's being planned and very systematic. I believe it is, but in hell, I don't believe people are smart enough for that. And the people being accused of planning out, I believe many of those who are doing these things and leading us to the kind of economic catastrophe we're headed for have good intentions. That's, maybe I'm deluded there, maybe I'm deceived there, but I do believe that. I believe they're sincere. This is their training, their background, their history, what they think. They think socialism is the answer. They think socialism works. It'll never work. The ultimate conclusion of where we're headed is even worse than totalitarianism. Now, socialism cannot work without, control. And so there has to be a restriction of liberties and freedom. The more you move towards socialism, the less freedom you can allow the people to have. That's just a foregone conclusion. I wish that I had time on one of these bulletins to share why this is, but it's very clear, very obvious why freedom and socialism cannot coexist. Never have, never will. The degree to which you're going towards socialism, you've got to take freedom away from the people. And we're headed that way. That's why we're losing so many freedoms at the same time we're economically moving towards a socialistic society. Now, I believe it can be turned around. I actually believe it will be turned around. To me, the greatest of all scenarios would be President Obama get a revelation. Now, I believe he's a sincere man. I do believe that. I believe he's trying to do the best job he can. I believe he believes from his background, his experience, his relationships, Marxism is the answer. Socialism is the answer. I don't think he would consider himself a Marxist by any means. I believe he doesn't know that's where those who have influenced him have gotten much of their, teaching and their philosophy of these things. And they may not even know it. Some of his teachers may. Some of these just filter through different books and emphasis and the Keynesian economic theories, and which I think have been proven obsolete, dramatically obsolete. But anyway, I believe he's a sincere man. I believe if he got a revelation, wait a minute, this really is not working. We're going the wrong way here. And that the true economic engine, the only thing that's going to bring true economic recovery is to stimulate free enterprise again. And there are some basic things you can do that will do that. You don't penalize what you're wanting to create. And I'm not just talking about taxes. There are many other things. Most, I believe business owners and all, they're not nearly as concerned about the taxes as the control, the restrictions, the over-regulation and things like that. But there are a lot of things you do to encourage business to grow. Someone to step out and take the risk of business and to step out and seize opportunities and even see them. But I think if that revelation went off in our president, he could turn things around much better, much easier. That would be the best case scenario. That he just all of a sudden gets a revelation. He's such a man, and I believe, of courage. And I believe he's a man that's seeking to do the right things, even though, some are beyond me how he could do them. I think he's a brilliant man. And I think there is potential for him to see the distinctions between the two courses we could be going on and where they're both headed. Let's pray for the man. Let's pray for him like we never have before, that he have that revelation. And if not, I think the church has got to wake up. We've got to get to the ballot box. We absolutely cannot sit at home through this next election. We will have lost the country. That some of the greatest souls in the last few hundred years risked everything to build for us to have the freedom that we have now. And we will have lost it on our watch if we don't wake up and go to the polls. We need to go to the polls for every single election. We need to pray for who to vote for. Whether it's the dog catcher or the president, it doesn't matter. Get engaged, get involved. We are called to do that, to be the salt of the earth and the light of the world that we're called to be. We've got to be engaged. That's one thing we can do. But first, I am praying for our president. I'm praying for him all the way. I won't give up on him as long as he's in office. I'm praying for the man, praying for the best, praying for God to send him wise, godly counselors, Daniels and Josephs. But if not, we've got to vote somebody in who understands what's going on. I personally believe this is being done to us by those who really think they're doing the wrong thing, but don't really understand what's going on economically and many other ways. And the incredible discouragement that things came upon, when the memo came out from the Department of Homeland Security that, really labeled basically evangelical Christians, anyone who believes in the prophecies of the end times, which is evangelical Christianity, most of Protestant Christianity, and a good portion of Catholics all believe these things absolutely. Well, you're a right-wing extremist or a potential right-wing extremist. And not only that, if you're a veteran, you're a potential right-wing extremist. And this is one of the most discouraging things to our veterans, that their government that they risked their lives for, and many lost their friends and the incredible things they went through to have their own government brand them something like that was hugely discouraging. But the fracturing that's going on in our society, whether it's in the military or the government or whatever, I've never seen anything like it. It looks like maybe the worst since 1860, but the church is coming together like never before. I've never seen such a drawing together in unity. We had a meeting recently, a summit of Christian leaders, about 300 came from the most diverse extremes I've ever seen in one room. It was amazing the unity we came out of that room with after 3 days. It was truly remarkable. And the resolve to come together, to unify, to address these issues, to defend one another, to stand up for one another as their churches are obviously being open to attacks and all now. I tell you, this is going to be our finest hour. If just two ask the Lord for anything, come to true unity and ask Him, He said He will do it. Let's go to the one who can change everything.